yeah, so what's on your guys' mind? How has Django been going this week?
I wouldn't mind seeing some user authentication again.
User authentication. Okay, we have that as requests. Any other requests? Okay, we could definitely do another user authentication step. So let me just work on my example that I have here since we're going with it. So let me get okay, so let's add a login screen here. Something we've done a couple times, but always good to kind of get more practice with that because it's common functionality for any website. So let's go through step by step what you need to do to get a login page enabled, and then again there could be permissioning that you might want to do, but that's something we could save for future time. All right, so I want to add a login page. How do I go about doing that? The first thing I usually do is go to my project URLs and then add in the paths that I want kind of Django to automatically give me. Again, I could manually do this, but again, Django makes it easy. So I'm going to add include Django. This is be a string. Django contrib auth URLs. Again, just to kind of highlight where this is coming from, if you go to your settings file, kind of look at the installed apps. So we added these apps, but notice that there is this contrib auth application and a few others. So that's where that URL is coming from. All right, so we added our default paths. Let's go to creating a registration templates folder. So in my templates for my app, again, my app is called November. In my templates folder, I'm going to create a new folder called registration. And this is, again, a reserved keyword. It might be configurable. I would have to look up documentation, so I'm not going to bother with that. But for the most part, just default to registration. And within here, I'm going to add my login page. So do login.html. All right, so the magic here is that we will automatically get past a form. So we don't have to actually pass the data manually to this login page. So let me actually copy what we had before. Let's take something simpler. All right, so our login page, we'll give it a title of login page. Again, I'm extending a base HTML, so this gives me a consistent look throughout my web page. I have a login page as my title, and then we'll get a form here automatically. So let's use that form. And then form. As table. All right, as always, we need to provide a button. That's not something magically provided to us, so we'll do a button. Type will be submit. This will be login. All right, so again, step one was adding the paths to our URL. Step two is adding login HTML template file. And that's what we just did. I think we do need our CSRF token here. CSRF token. All right, so that's there. So again, just simple page. It's form. It's going to show a couple of fields for user login, being name and password, and then they'll be able to log in. All right, so that's what our login page will look like. Next, we want to go. I'm going to go to my settings on my project. So back to my project, settings PY. I'm going to add some values here. These aren't, I don't think, required, but they just make my life easier. So the typical settings I use are login URL. Again, reading documentation if you want more details on this. But these are going to be named routes. So I'm going to have a route of login. I also want a login redirect. I can spell redirect URL. That's going to be another name route. So in this case, I'll go to November's, and let's say my homepage will be my redirect. So once they log in, they'll get automatically redirected to my homepage. And home, again, is a named route that I have. I'll get to that shortly. And then we'll also have a logout redirect also, so redirect. And in most cases, it makes sense to kind of just take them to maybe the login page. You could argue maybe you want a separate logout page that says, you've now been logged out, and maybe a link to your login page, but just keep it simple. I'm not going to create a login page right now. So we're going to redirect them to a login page if they log out. All right, so just these three values in my settings .py file. I'm going to save that. I have a syntax error, which is this comma needs to be there. Okay, so again, just to reiterate the steps we went through, in our project URLs, we added this path. So this gives us access to some URLs. And then I added a login page to my templates. And then my settings, I added some extra parameters just to make the handling of the login a little easier. Another thing I want to do now is I'm going to go to my views. And we talked about this earlier, and this is something I did want to highlight also if we had time for it, but this is the idea of using decorators. Again, this is not something we've gone over too much in detail. So if you want to spend some extra time on understanding how decorators kind of work, we could definitely do that. But in this case, if I include Django contrib auth and decorators, I want to import login required. Again, this is a pre-built decorator that we can use, but I think we're probably gonna have time for it. I'm gonna actually try to mimic this myself once we get it working. So once I have the decorator, I'm just gonna apply it to the pages I want to protect. So my index, my student list, and my student details, and I guess editing between. So all my pages, you gotta be logged in to actually get there. All right, so I'm gonna save that. And then that's the last thing. Okay, I think that's all we need. So that's for our project. Again, we just made it so that you have to go to a login page. Again, login required will protect you, as in if the user is not authenticated, login required will redirect them to the login page. All right, so we need to actually set up our users. So I'm going to do that through the admin panel, just because it's easier. So I'm going to go to users. Let's add a user. So admin is our super user that we could log in with, but in this case, I'm going to add a new user. Let's say the username is November user. Password, I don't know how picky they'll be. I'm not sure. Let's give me a legit password. Password some comment, of course. All right. Okay, that seemed to work. November user was added successfully, so I think we should be able to log in now. So again, we're on this page already. If I refresh, it should kick me out, I believe. I believe it should kick me out. Why is it not kicking me out? All right, so obviously I've messed this up, which is okay. We can try fixing this. So I've got my decorator here. That should be working fine. I think I know what the issue is. Maybe. URLs. So again, just to point out what I said I would point out, these are my name routes. So I have name equals home, which is why in my settings py file, I'm going to November's. I guess it should be November home. November home, URLs. All right, that looks good to me. So let's try to figure out why we can't actually get this to work. And all right, so the issue is that. Okay, makes sense.
Are you logged in as the super user?
Maybe. That is a good thought. Log out. Okay, I logged out. I think that was it actually. Good catch there. So if I try to go to my homepage, which was /November, let's see if it'll actually let me. All right, great. That was it. Thank you, Chad. But yeah, so I was logged in as my admin user, so I already had access. But in this case, I logged out. So now it's actually forcing me to log in. Notice that my next value in my URL is pointing me to November because that's the page I was trying to get to. If I wanted to go to another page, so if I want to try to get to November, I think it was students. Yeah. So if I want to try to get this page, I can also try to access it, but I'm not logged in. So it redirects me to a login page, but it knows I want to be redirected to the student edit page once I log in. So let's try to log in. November user, and then my password, which is a strong password, login. All right, notice I got to my edit page. So again, just a few steps, and you could add a login page pretty easily. I apologize, I forget who asked to see this example, but was there anything more in detail you wanted to see or something that was still unclear?
No, you pretty much covered it. The only other thing that was, I think last time we used the built-in user model to create users, but no, I mean, you explained everything. You answered my question. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the built-in user model, that is something that already exists. So we have groups and users that's already accessible to us. So I just created a user. Let's see, I logged out. I just created a user through the admin panel. Again, you can create it through a seeds file. That's what I did last time. So if you do want to see that, we could definitely do it. In this case, your admin panel is your friend. So kind of use that to add in some data as needed. Yeah, let's talk about decorators, because again, that's not a topic we've highlighted. It's a more Python specific item, so maybe we should have covered it in the first couple of weeks, but let's try to actually implement this login required decorator. So we're using a pre-built one in, but I'm gonna try to create my own. So I'm gonna do my own login check. All right, so I named it whatever I wanted to. Let's just create a new file just for organizational sake. So we'll call it validator.py. Maybe I should call it decorator. I don't know. All right, so in here, I'm going to create a function. And that function will be what I named it. Where did it go? I have way too many files open. There we are. Close some files. See you later, see you later, see you later. All right. So I called it my own login check. Let's see if we can achieve what we want to here. So this will take a function as a parameter, because this is decorating this function. And so this function will be index, because that's what I applied it to. So basically, again, a decorator is essentially wrapping your function. So if I do it this way, I could simply call my function here. Get my colons on. So in this case, print running your function. Print done. All right, so in this case, all we're doing is going to print a couple items before we execute the function. All right, so let's see if this works. Obviously, we need to let our file know that this is what we want to use. So I'm going to do November validator import my own login check. All right, so notice we're not actually doing any logic in here. So we're not actually protecting ourselves fully. Okay, let's see. Okay, can I save that? My server's up. It looks to be good. Let's try getting to our index, which was November. Of course, decorator. Right. Here, I think I need carbs and carbs, maybe. Not sure if that was an issue, but again, let's go to documentation if needed. Return. Okay, so that is what we need to do. Okay, so I need to return a value, because obviously my function is returning a value. I need to actually return that. That's what I was missing. All right, so we loaded this page. Let's actually look at our output here, if we get any output. Did we get any output? All right, yeah, so if we look at our console, notice that we printed out running your function and done with your function. When the reason is because I refreshed my page, so it's calling index, but index is wrapped by my own logic check. So that's basically essentially we're doing something, we can do something before our function, we can do something after, and then actually run our function. So again, this is just an easier way rather than having to, I could easily copy this and put it here and do essentially the same thing, like if x is my return value, right? I could easily do this. It's not a big deal. But again, most decorators are doing more work than just this. And also, if I want to apply like this, if I want to apply this printing to all of my functions, it's a little more tedious, right? Because I got to actually go through all my functions. In this case, I only have 4 route handlers. But what if I had like 40 route handlers? It's not really efficient from a developer standpoint to kind of update each function that's doing the same functionality. Again, this is the idea of reusable code. So this is where decorators come into play. You can definitely achieve, achieve the same results without decorators, but why would you put yourself through all that work? All right, so I have my own login check. So let's actually try to mimic what we wanted to do. So I don't want to just print out stuff. I actually want to check some stuff. So in this case, our requests. Actually, let me do a debugging example. And I know we're running up until lunchtime, so trying to eat away too much of your lunch. Well, let's actually try to debug this, because that's something I love doing through VS Code, and I want to make sure you guys are comfortable doing it too. So just to run through the steps of actually using your VS Code debugger, I'm going to open manage.py. I'm going to go to run debug. Sure, this is going to do some stuff I don't care about. I want to create a launch file. So actually go to my debug window, create launch.json file. And then in here, I need to provide additional arguments. So I'm going to do args. And then in my item here, I'm going to do run server. So it's going to do the same thing that I did in my terminal. Let me actually trash that, trash these windows. Okay, so run server is going to be my parameter I want to use when I run. So I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to go back to my run debug menu, and hopefully that should work just fine. Yep. Okay, so my server is running now. Notice it's the same output. What else? What else? Right, I was debugging. So I have a breakpoint here because I want to investigate what args and quargs actually has. So let's try getting to this page. If I refresh, great. I'm in my debugger, and I've actually hit this breakpoint. So notice what I have here. Let me extend this out, maybe blow it up a little bit. All right, so notice I can actually investigate what args and quargs has. So in this case, I can see that my args value has 1 entry. So at 0 index, I have a WSI-GI request. So that's my request, HTTP request that's coming in. So that's actually what I want to use here. So I'm actually going to type some code here. So my request is args. That's the first value. Again, just to clarify, 0 index here is within args. Args is just a list. So I can pull this request out. And then I know that request has a user on it. And I want to check if that user is authenticated. So if request.user is, let me decrease that, is authenticated, then I actually want to call my function and do whatever I want to do. So in this case, I was return the function. I don't care about this printing anymore. However, if our user is not authenticated, we want to actually take them somewhere else. So else, I'll return a redirect to, what was my route? So let's go back to my views, copy what I had before, redirects, validator, not too many params, go to them, let's go to login. That's the name of my route. Again, this is coming from the default path that we used for authentication. The last thing I need here is that redirect. Copy this. And okay, notice that we're still broken in our code, as in we're debugging or stepping through our code. So this is not actually going to work, as in I've added new code, so it's actually going to restart the server. So I'm going to get an error if I continue, because it's not actually going to, it's not going to execute the logic I just added. So I'm going to continue. I'll get an error. I'll ignore it. Continue on. My server will reboot. And it's rebooting. All right, it's back up. Let's try running this again. Refresh. Oh, got an error. Got a typo. I think I did that same typo last time too. Not sure why I forget to include my S's. All right, try it again. Refresh. Okay, there we go. We're broken now, as in we're stepping through our code. And let's check our values. So we have request, we have user, and we have is authenticated. Notice that the value is true right now because we were logged in. So it's actually going to excuse me, execute our function. In this case, our function was what we wrapped. So index is what we want to call. So again, it's just going to do what we expect, which is render the home page. So if you want to continue, I'm just going to hit continue. And yep, we're taken to our home page. Let's actually log out and see what our decorator would do in that case. Again, this is just mimicking the functionality that the login required decorator does for us already. But just to show you kind of we could do it ourselves. So okay, I'm trying to navigate to our homepage, and I'm in this decorator, so let's actually investigate our values. We have user, and notice that is authenticated is false now. So we're not going to hit this part of our if statement. We're going to go to our else. So our else simply wants to redirect user to the login page. So I'm going to take one step. Notice that we skipped over this part because this evaluates false. And now we're going to return redirect login. So I'm going to continue. Okay. And notice we're at our login page. So essentially, we did the same thing that login required is doing. I will note that previously login required had the next parameter, so knew where to redirect you to. I did not implement that, so we're going to be taken to our home page by default. So let me log in. It was November user, and my password login. Okay, so now we're going back to our index page. Again, we're broken again because, just to reiterate, we have our own login check here versus our other methods have a login required decorator that we were using. But I wanted to implement my own just because maybe I want special functionality, who knows. So now we're in here again. Hopefully user is authenticated now. And yep, is authenticated is true. So that's what I expected. I'm just going to continue now. And there we are, back at our homepage. All right. Again, I know that was a pretty quick primer on decorators. I will post a link in our November's chat for a resource that I've used to kind of understand decorators because they're still kind of foreign to me. I will say I'm not an expert, but they can be handy. So definitely don't shy away from using them if you find a good use case for them. Before we break out for lunch, I just want to make sure any other Django questions from this week. Again, Django, a lot of it is just practice. One is a lot of practice and just doing repetitions and getting familiar with handling errors. And two, a lot of it is also reading documentation and just understanding what can be done. Django has a lot that it can offer. Image field, again, this is actually the first time I actually used image field. But yeah, there's a lot of capabilities that are kind of baked into Django. It's kind of about discovering what exists through reading through documentation or just seeing like user examples and kind of tailoring or applying those to your web page as needed. Any thoughts? Questions, remaining questions, concerns? Anything else?
Well, I have one quick thing. I'm just a little bit confused. You don't have to import anything into validators.py to use is authenticated?
Correct. So this is calling a method. So yeah, I'm not actually creating like a user object. If I wanted to create a user, I'd probably need to import the user model. But in this case, I'm not actually creating it. I'm just calling a method on it. So I think it resolves just fine.
Okay, thank you.
But good question there. All right, so if there's no other Django review questions, let's kind of just look at, today, we're just going to continue the challenges that we started yesterday and maybe 2 days ago, the meetup challenge. This is, again, another one that might take some time. So it's a good practice if you just want to go through the motions of creating like a login page and designing a website. Again, this one will have a user model, a group model, and also event model. So it's a little more intricate than just our usual nested CRUD where we just maybe had just like students and cohorts. But again, it's a good challenge to kind of make sure you understand how to create a project from scratch, have authentication, and kind of properly design your models for a website. Also, you guys started the Ticketmaster group project yesterday. That's something else we'd like you to continue over the weekend. So hopefully you and your group can schedule some time if you've not completed those projects, and kind of make sure you guys are working through it and can complete it by next week.
You're still recording, by the way.
Yep, good point. Let me stop recording.